Welcome to part 4 of Gray's Anatomy for Organisations, Organisational Leverage. Previously, we introduced the 4 perspectives of an organisation, how these 4 perspectives are connected and directly influence each other, and that to create a high-performance organisation in the external group world, we need to implement an outcomes-aligned structure. In part 3, we showed how startups, typically small and under-resourced, working in a garage or an innovation hub, are able to disrupt large established companies. But this should not be the case. To thrive and survive, we need organisational leverage. Organisations typically have the following layers. We start with a team. The team has a manager. The manager reports to a general manager, who reports to a vice president, then a senior vice president, finishing up with a CEO. Looking at this picture, we need to ask ourselves, what does each layer do? From Elliott Jacques' work, the layers of an organisation should be based on the required decision-making timeframe of that layer. Our team and manager are focused on the work to be completed this quarter and this year. Middle management are balancing resources, solving systemic issues. The executive team is scanning the horizon, sifting through the noise to identify the signals of change. Our mission statements and nested mission statements cascade down the layers. Each layer of the organisation is playing their roles. Maybe that is what is supposed to happen. Let's change the team at the bottom to one aligned to products and functions. The layers of our organisation now look like this. This is commonly referred to as our vertical silos. Have you ever tried to have a cross-company decision made? This is the prisoner's dilemma on steroids. In fact, the only person that can actually make a cross-company decision is the CEO. The organisation is inflexible. As Nassim Taleb, the author of The Black Swan, describes, it's fragile. By now, our small, under-resourced startup has its act together. Focused on outcomes, the startup is succeeding in disrupting our inflexible, fragile organisation. Let's start again. Let's change the team to be one aligned to outcomes. 2 questions arise when we do this. What does an outcome-aligned organisation look like, and how can it scale? Well, we have our 4 cross-company teams working on their outcomes. Their outcomes could be customer solutions like Disney World or Spotify, a customer group based in a territory, a state, country or region, or a combination of both. In part 2, we said how all organisations operate in both ways. Therefore, we have functional team managers focused on skills development, ensuring their shared services are aligned to the outcomes. And we have outcome team managers using the 4 M's to lead their team forward. Remember our big switch? And remember that in our vertical silos, no one could actually make a decision? In our outcome-aligned structure, the general manager sits across both management layers. Now there is a single decision maker. For example, at Southwest Airlines, they have an airport manager. The airport manager sits across all the functional teams of cabin crew, ground crew, pilots, check-in staff, etc. Working as a team to make sure they meet their plane turnaround times, even the pilots help clean the planes. The vice president is looking across multiple outcome teams, sharing best practices, looking at systemic issues, allocating resources and capital. The senior vice president is looking at industry trends, spending time to analyse how new technologies and techniques could enhance or disrupt our organisation. The CEO is asking even bigger questions. Are there fundamental shifts on the horizon that we need to navigate? What should we be investing in now, even though the return is not in the near term? For example, in 1995, Toyota's chairman commissioned a team to develop an ultra-fuel efficient car. The return came 15 years later when they launched the Prius. Our outcomes alignment creates an organic cell-like structure for our organisation. This organic structure follows Stafford Beer's viable systems model based on cybernetics. Each square represents the decision-making timeframe required for that layer. Decisions can now be made at the appropriate level. We don't need the CEO signing off on international travel or if we want to shift resources from one team to another. We now have organisational leverage. But what about scalability? Let's place the two organisational structures side by side. In a product function-based organisation, the only thing we scale are managers. The more we divide our organisation by products or functions, the more managers we need. This leads to more meetings, disputes and turf wars. But our organic outcome-based structure is infinitely scalable. We can add or remove outcome-based teams as required. Importantly, our organisation is now anti-fragile. It has flexibility and agility. The small startup no longer stands a chance. In our outcome-based organisation, the role of the managers changes for each layer. Just like the size of the square, the roles become bigger, broader, and more complex. We now get to make decisions. But this is a double-edged sword. It also creates a greater level of accountability and transparency. This raises the questions regarding capabilities. In Part 5 of Gray's Anatomy for Organisations, Layers, Levels and Leaders, we look at the level of capability required for each layer in our outcome-aligned organisation. Thank you.